Hello everybody, Samba here from TarantulasDreamRadio. I wanted to make a little video for everybody. I've had a few questions come my way asking about broadcasting from home. How do I do it? What's the setup look like? What's the studio setup going on over here at Groom Lake Analog Recording? So I figured might as well make a little update video for everybody. I made a post on my Instagram last year talking about the studio, kind of gave a little tour back then, but since then I've upgraded it and I've added a few new pieces of gear and kind of changed my workflow a little bit. And so I went from recording my shows beforehand and just playing those over the air to broadcasting live every Monday night if I can do it. And it's been one of my favorite things to do, so I figured I might as well make a little video and kind of give a little update, and hopefully if you have any questions about broadcasting from home, they'll be answered here in this video. So let's check it out. So the first piece of gear I want to talk about over here is this rack of preamps. Now it might seem a little intimidating initially when you look at it, but pretty much I've simplified my workflow and my use of these preamps into just one now that I'm going live. These preamps, I won't go into too much depth as I already did on the previous post, but this one right here is a digital MPA microphone preamp that I used to use, as well as this compressor right here, this TL Audio, that I also used to use when I was recording my shows, and that was it. Those were the only two preamps I used for recording for the radio. Everything else I used for just studio recording for music and whatnot. But the only other piece of gear that I use in here is actually this Eventide broadcast delay. Now, this broadcast delay, it's a BD980. It's from 1986. It's actually in very good shape, but pretty much it is essential if you want to broadcast live on the air and have either callers or people in the studio, guests in the studio who aren't necessarily versed in FCC regulations or just aren't used to not cursing all the time. It took me a while to kind of get out of the habit, and it can be a hard habit to break. So having something like this is something necessary if you're going to be broadcasting live, and you haven't broken that habit yet. But anyways, it essentially takes the audio that you feed to it, so pretty much the music from my computer and my voice, and throws a delay on there. Now when I hit the dump button right there, this is what you're going to see initially when you boot it up. It's essentially slowly building up delay as it goes. This one is set to an 8-second delay, so it's going to keep going until it hits 8 seconds. But pretty much once you hit that button, any audio that was being delayed will get dumped out. You'll go to live audio, and then it'll slowly rebuild itself back up as time goes on. Of course, you're going to hear the build up. Your audio is going to sound slower and more digital. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. But once it hits 4 seconds, you're going to have a nice yellow dump button light up for you. And that's pretty much going to tell you that you have a safe amount of delay there to continue broadcasting. And it's going to keep going until it hits 8 seconds. And once it hits 8 seconds, it's going to say safe. And that's the maximum amount of delay that I have it set for. I believe this unit can go up to 10 seconds of delay. But of course, that all depends on, there's some dip switches inside of the unit that you can switch. If you don't want 8 seconds, you can go as low as, I believe, 4 seconds. But yeah, that is the Eventide BD980 broadcast delay. A very necessary piece of equipment. It's not particularly expensive anymore. Back in the day, it was probably $5,000, $6,000, if not more. Now you can get it for a couple hundred, depending on the condition. This one was actually in fairly nice condition, so it costs a little bit more. But I love it. I think it's a great little piece of studio gear. It's an antique, if you will. And they do make broadcast delay now, but they are much slimmer. All right, so this is my main mixing area, my control center, if you will, of Groom Lake Analog Recordings. Sorry, it's a little cramped, but you don't have a lot of room. I broadcast from my bedroom. I record from my bedroom. So this is all I have really room for right now without really rearranging everything, which I might end up doing anyway at some point. But here we go. This is kind of the little setup, and we're going to go over just a handful of different pieces of equipment over here. Not going to dive too deep because I did kind of cover some of this stuff over on Instagram. But this is the computer I use. It's a 2020 MacBook Pro M1 laptop. I upgraded this from a 2011 MacBook Pro that I used for many years, so this was definitely a needed upgrade, and I love this computer. It's served me well so far, and I'm excited to see how much more work and how quickly I can get done using something like that, as opposed to a computer from almost 10 years ago, or over 10 years ago. This is my interface. It's a Tascam personal broadcasting interface. It's probably the cheapest interface you can buy, but I didn't need anything crazy expensive. Just needed to pass audio from my mixer into my computer. It has a handy on-air button, so I know when audio is passing through the interface, when the light is off. No audio moves from the interface into the computer. So it's a blessing and a curse. If you forget to hit this button when you mean to go live or when you mean to record, no audio is going to pass through. And so you have to hit that button. And now audio will move from wherever you're moving the audio to and from. So there you go. That is the Tascam personal broadcasting interface. Underneath, let me move this cord for you real quick, is the JK Audio Universal Host Digital Hybrid, and we're going to dive into this a little deeper in the next little section, but it's for my telephone system. So we'll take a look at that in a second. This is part 2. This is the actual telephone. It is a real telephone, and we'll get into that in a second as well. And this is the mixer. It's a Soundcraft 12 input mixer plus the 2 stereo channels that are the blue faders. It's a fairly simple mixer. It's fairly inexpensive, but it does do what I need it to do, and it's a nice little cost-effective and a compact mixer for someone like me. I do have a larger mixer, a Mackie mixer in my closet, but I'm not going to use that one. It's a little too big, but it's got 2 stereo channels I use, one for laptop, one for the phones. And then I have my mic plugged in here to input number 1. There's my microphone. It is a Shure SM7B, a pretty ubiquitous standard broadcasting microphone. It's served me well so far. I like the sound of it. It's fairly neutral, fairly flat sounding, which is what I want. I want to be able to EQ it myself. Maybe someday I'll try one of those electro voice microphones, but those are a little too expensive for me. Behind the microphone is running into a Cloud Amplifier's Cloud Lifter. It amplifies the signal, gives me some more gain, as the SM7B isn't known for its gain, and it needs a little bit more, so I'm not pushing the preamp on my mixer too hard. Other than that, behind here is a hum eliminator over here. I run my mixer from, or my computer from the desk right here into the hum eliminator, into the mixer, and then there's another hum eliminator that goes into the broadcast delay, gets rid of the 60 hertz hum, and there's my monitor. It used to be my TV, and now it's just now it's just a monitor, and there's a little Audacity session running. I use Audacity just as my digital audio workstation. I don't do much digital recording, but when I do, I just try to keep it simple and free and open source. So that is kind of the little control center over here, Groom Lake Analog Recordings. In this next section, we're going to get into the telephones. It's a little compact over here, but this is what I have set up, and maybe someday I'll have a little more room. But that is the mixing area. All right, so this is part 1 of the phone systems. This first part is the JK Audio Universal Host Digital Hybrid. It's essentially a little preamp between the phone system and my mixer. It allows me to take calls over the air by separating the caller audio from what they're hearing from my microphone. It's a fairly simple device. It's fairly inexpensive compared to actual telephone hybrid systems that are used in big radio stations that allow you to take multiple callers, multiple guests. The hybrid systems in big radio stations EQ all the calls, make sure they all sound about the same. With this particular piece of gear, it does a lot of the same things, but at a fraction of the price. But of course, it's all limited to the phone that you plug in, which is kind of just more of a cost-effective solution for me, since I don't need to take billions of calls at this point. So right here in the front, it's fairly simple. It's got about 4 knobs over here: send 1, send 2, and caller. I only use 2 of these knobs because I'm the only one broadcasting over here. This first little knob right here is the caller knob. That's sort of a little preamp of what I'm hearing from the caller. I can turn them up or down. The send knob is the signal from my mixer sensor going to the phone, to the caller, and it allows me to create a mix minus signal or mix minus mix to the caller. You only want the caller to hear your voice or whatever you want to send to them, but not their own. So this helps me do that. So the second half of the phone system over here is an actual telephone. It's a VoIP phone or a voice over IP or internet protocol phone. I get the cell phone service through an internet provider. It's fairly cheap. In fact, it's only about $5 more than what I pay for Skype. And Skype is honestly not a particularly great service in my opinion, but I'm sure there's fans of Skype, so sorry if I'm stepping on your toes, but this allows me to take calls over the air. It's what connects to the JK Audio Universal Host. Not much to kind of explain here. It's pretty much a basic telephone, but the service is better than what I get through Skype, and it allows me to send a mix minus signal to it. And yeah, that is the telephone system over here in the studio. Now, in regards to the software I use to broadcast, I use a couple different pieces of software. This first one is called Mix, M-I-X-X-X, triple X, Sexy Mix. That pretty much is just a DJ program. It lets you load up different tracks or different audio files and crossfade them, reduce the volume, add additional gain if you need to, add effects if you want. You can even do a kind of talk back over on top of the music if you want. But usually, or pretty much all I do is just make a playlist. And in fact, I'll pull up the most recent playlist over here from the set the other night, number 23. And pretty much I just take my tracks. I'm going to throw a couple tracks over here. And let's throw this one by Gulch right here. And pretty much you'd start the song, and once you get to the sort of end portion right here, I'm not going to play the song. I don't want any copyright strikes or to hear the audio over my voice. And you would, once it gets to the end, you'd hit play on this other one, and it starts playing the second song, and you can do a really great kind of crossfades between songs. And right here is some volume, kind of main volume knobs over here. So if I want to start a track right before I go into the track and I'm kind of introducing it, I'll probably have the volume about halfway to a little before midway. And then as soon as I'm done talking, I'll fade the track back up all the way, kill my mic. And there you go. That's pretty much how I play the music over the air, and how I'm just kind of playing DJ over here from my house. I think I might try recording the entire set minus my talkback breaks. So pretty much instead of kind of crossfading between each song live, I'll do it beforehand, and then I'll just load little music breaks, hit play with all the crossfades already there. And I'll be able to kind of maybe go to the bathroom or do what you have to do. Instead of having to play like a Metallica 1, anytime a DJ has to go to the bathroom, we put on a really long song, and then that'll kind of help you out. Well, I don't really have that luxury, unfortunately. None of the songs I play are really all that long. But anyways, I'm going on a tangent. This is Mix. This is the software I use to play back the music over the air. Now, the second piece of software that I use is called Audio Hijack. It's a piece of software that lets you route audio from your computer to any kind of virtual output you want. So if you want to route it to a web browser, you can do that. If you want to route it to a particular piece of software, you can do that as well as kind of make a chain, an effects chain of different inputs or effects, and kind of route your audio through that. So I use this in lieu of a bunch of outboard gear, as it allows me to kind of control everything from the computer in real time, as opposed to having to kind of step away from the mic to adjust settings on the outboard gear over here from the beginning of the video. But yes, this Audio Hijack lets me take this Mini Studio US32. That's my interface, and it passes through a few different things over here. I've kind of simplified it again over time, but pretty much it goes through this interface right here. It goes through this compressor, called Rough Rider 3. That gets compressed over here. It's a pretty heavy compression for radio. Beyond that, it moves over to a de-esser, kind of hopefully eliminates some of the harsh S sounds that you hear. It doesn't really sound very pleasant, especially after being compressed. I move on to a peak limiter over here to kind of keep my volume from going out of control. I have a couple denoising inputs right here to kind of keep the background noise out of the microphone, especially since I'm broadcasting from home and I do have other people who live in this house, as well as AC noise, noise from the wind blowing little branches on my roof. So hopefully this kind of cuts down the noise around the mic and only has my voice kind of coming through. Beyond that, right here, I have a T-Rex equalizer, kind of gives me a little high-end boost over here. Just kind of some of the high end gets lost when you throw some noise reduction on there. And then it all finishes off with a stereo limiter over here, which again, kind of makes sure that the volume doesn't go above a certain level that I've set. Then I have a little audio meter here. This is the output device that sends it over to a virtual output, the Black Hole 2-channel output, which I'll get into here in a second. And a recorder over here where it records everything that sends through, that allows me to record my shows for encores later on. So this is the second little piece of software I use. It's called the Audio Hijack. It's online. It's not free, unfortunately, but it does allow me to do quite a bit that I wasn't able to do before. So check out Audio Hijack if you're trying to record a podcast or broadcast live. It even lets you, if you notice right here, it has outputs. You can actually send it to an RTMP server for live streaming and whatnot as well. So it's a nice little piece of software. Now, the last little piece of software I want to get into is one that anyone can try if they want to use it. It's free for the basic version. It's called Cleanfeed. It's actually, it runs through Chrome browser, so you can use it on a laptop, and it sort of works on a phone, but it's mostly made to go between different laptops or desktop computers. But essentially, it's a service that was made for podcasters, people doing remote broadcasting, low power FM radio stations, stuff like that, where it sends a high definition signal across the internet and across different Chrome browsers. Now, I use this service to send my audio from my home studio to the station computers. It allows me to control the music or to send the music and my voice through my kind of a signal chain, which is what Audio Hijack does, and broadcast it live over there with a small amount of latency a very minimal delay, and it's in high def. It's 320 kilobit signal, which is which is pretty decent, especially for radio broadcasting over the air. It's not too bad. It's definitely not the highest quality, but it's definitely usable, and you don't really notice the difference over the air. But this is what I use. So over here, you've got, here's my name. I'm going to blur this out. You don't want to see my Christian name. My name is Samba, as well as you can see the little green audio meter here lighting up with my voice as it's sending, it's getting a signal from my interface over here. And when I connect to the station computer, I have, there's a second little user over here, and that lets me send the audio over the internet, and it sounds pretty decent, honestly, to me, to my ears. And yeah, that's what I've been using to send audio from my home studio over to the station computers, and I'm very happy with the service. So thank you very much, Cleanfeed. Please check them out if you're trying to do something similar to me, or if you're just podcasting, or if you just want to, you can probably even use the service just to talk to friends if you want to, as long as they have Chrome and you have Chrome as well. It works. And that's the end of the studio tour. I hope it was fun for everybody. I had a fun time making this video. If you have any more questions about broadcasting from home, about the pieces of gear I have, other pieces of gear, anything I recommend, please slide into those DMs over on Instagram at TarantulasDreamTV, or hit me up at my email address at samba@downtownradio.org. And please check out the show every Monday night live from my home studio over on 99.1 FM Downtown Radio if you live in Tucson. And if you're anywhere else, coast to coast across the country or the world, please check us out at downtownradio.org, and check out all the other programs at the station, because it is just choice. So please stay safe out there, wear a mask, social distance if you can, get your vaccines if you can, and remember, it is a weird world. Take care.